Fire is everywhere, and the sky is glowing red. I see the buildings whose every brick I once knew burning. I see people running. I see people falling and not getting up again. Diary of B.C. Franklin, written on the night of May 31, 1921. Today we are talking about a crime that was erased from textbooks for 70 years. Not because no one knew, but because the people who had the power to write history decided this story was not worth telling. Before we speak about what was destroyed, let me take you down Greenwood Avenue on the morning of May 31, 1921, before the sun set and before the fires began. 101 Greenwood Avenue. The office of J.B. Stratford, owner of the Stratford Hotel, a 4-story building, built and entirely owned by Black Americans, and one of the most luxurious hotels in Oklahoma. Next door, 107 Greenwood. The office of Dr. A.C. Jackson, described by the Mayo Clinic as the most capable Black surgeon in the United States. Continue down the street, a dental clinic, an accounting office, an insurance company, the Dreamland Theater with 1,000 seats, the newsroom of the Tulsa Star newspaper, a library, and Booker T. Washington School. Greenwood was not just a neighborhood. It was a living declaration that Black Americans could build their own world, even when the world around them refused to give them a place. But in America at that time, Black prosperity was sometimes the most dangerous crime of all. And the spark came on May 30, 1921. Dick Rowland was 19 years old. He shined shoes for a living. Every day, he walked past the Drexel Building in downtown Tulsa to use the restroom designated for Black people because it was the only one he was allowed to use. At that day, he stepped into the elevator. The elevator operator was Sarah Page, 17 years old, white. What happened inside that small box? No one knows for certain. Perhaps he stumbled and accidentally brushed against her arm. Perhaps the elevator jerked suddenly. A scream was heard inside the elevator, and Rowland ran out, and the police were called. The next day, the Tulsa Tribune ran a headline on its front page. Tulsa Tribune, May 31, 1921. Black boy attacks girl in elevator. No investigation, no evidence, no official testimony, just a headline. And the fire had been lit. Newspapers were not just reporting the news. They were telling a story. And the story they told about Dick Rowland and Sarah Page was the story white America had been waiting to believe, the story of the supposed danger of the Black man. By evening, hundreds of white residents had gathered outside the Tulsa courthouse, demanding that Dick Rowland be handed over for a lynching without any trial. This was no longer a story about Dick Rowland. It was a story about something that had been building for a long time and was ready to explode. When rumors of the crowd at the courthouse reached Greenwood, a group of Black veterans men who had just returned from World War I put their uniforms back on. They took up their guns and headed to the courthouse. They had fought for America in Europe. They understood something more deeply than many people back home, that nothing is given freely, that freedom must be defended. A Black veteran said, "We died on French soil for this flag. We will not stand by and watch an innocent Black man be lynched before our eyes." The Tulsa police ordered them to lay down their weapons. Some refused. A gunshot rang out from where, no one knows. And that was the moment everything collapsed. Gunfire, screams, the sound of fire. That night, thousands of white residents poured into Greenwood. This was not a spontaneous riot. It was an organized destruction. The city armory was opened, and weapons were distributed to white civilians. They moved block by block, burning businesses, looting them before setting them on fire. The Tulsa police did not stop it. They took part. Many officers in uniform joined the mobs looting Black homes. The National Guard was deployed not to protect Greenwood, but to arrest black residents who were said to be causing disturbances. More than 6,000 residents of Greenwood were detained in hastily built camps. They were released only when a white sponsor came forward to vouch for them. And in the sky, the most unimaginable thing of all, came the sound of airplane engines. At least 2 aircraft circled over Greenwood. Witnesses later testified that they saw fire being dropped from above. Some people were shot at from the air. This was the first time in American history that aircraft were used to attack civilians on United States soil. On the morning of June 1, Dr. A.C. Jackson stepped out of his home. He raised both hands high. He knew they knew who he was. The man who had treated both black and white patients in Tulsa for years. The doctor whom white medical colleagues had called a genius. He believed his reputation would protect him, and he was wrong. A.C. Jackson died on the lawn in front of his own house, with his hands still raised above his head. His death was not a killing in the chaos. It was a message. No matter who you were, no matter what you had done, no matter how much you had contributed, the color of your skin was an unforgivable crime. A few blocks away, the Stratford Hotel was burning. J.B. Stratford, the man who had spent his life building that hotel, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, stood and watched his creation collapse in flames. Afterward, he was arrested, inciting a riot for attempting to defend his own property. He escaped before he could be brought to trial. He spent the rest of his life in Chicago, fighting in court to have his name cleared. Not until 1996, 75 years later, did the state of Oklahoma officially dismiss all charges against him. J.B. Stratford later said, "They took everything from me, but they could not take this. I know that I was not wrong." 2 men, 2 tragedies that came to represent the losses of the black community, and also a cruel lesson. In America in 1921, no talent was great enough, no achievement grand enough to protect you from the color of your own skin. The morning after a city erased, on June 1, 1921, when dawn broke, Greenwood no longer existed. More than 1,200 homes had been burned to the ground. The entire business district, 35 blocks, had turned to ash. Hospitals, schools, churches, pharmacies, clinics, theaters, all of it. Around 10,000 people lost their homes overnight. More than 800 were injured. The initial official report recorded 36 deaths, but investigators today estimate the real number may have been as high as 300, many of them buried in unmarked mass graves scattered around the Tulsa area. The survivors returned from detention camps to see that the place they had once called home was nothing but piles of rubble. Many had nothing left but the clothes they were wearing. A survivor testified in 2000, "I remember walking out of the detention camp and looking toward Greenwood. There was nothing left. Not a single house, not a single building, only smoke and silence." In the weeks that followed, the city of Tulsa did not rebuild for the victims. Instead, city officials proposed changing zoning laws to prevent the black community from rebuilding on their own land. In the end, the people of Greenwood rose again with their own hands. They rebuilt their neighborhood without government support, without compensation, and without a single apology. It was an act of courage, so painful that no one should ever have been forced to do it. The strangest thing about the Tulsa Massacre is not its brutality, but the silence that followed. The event was removed from Oklahoma history textbooks. Local newspapers stopped mentioning it. What few people know is this. When researchers later searched the archives for the Tulsa Tribune issue from May 31, they discovered that the page had been cut out. It had been removed from multiple archived copies in multiple different locations, not fallen out with age. not eaten by insects. It had been cut out by hand, deliberately, again and again. And legally, one fact stands out. Not a single prosecution was ever opened for the death of any black victim. Not a single conviction. Not a serious criminal investigation into the 300 deaths. The police and city authorities were never prosecuted. No one was arrested for murder in Greenwood. For decades, many people in Tulsa, including black residents who grew up there, did not know what had happened on the very ground they lived on. That curtain of silence was not accidental. It was a choice. Someone decided that this story should not be told. A Tulsa teacher interviewed in 2001 said, "I taught Oklahoma history for 20 years and never knew about Greenwood. No one ever told us." And that wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. You may not know this. There was an investigative document, 178 pages long. It was completed in 1921, and it sat in a drawer in the office of the governor of Oklahoma, unpublished, unexamined for 76 years. Not until 1996 did the state of Oklahoma establish a commission to investigate the Tulsa Massacre. In 2001, the official 178-page report was finally released, the first time the state formally acknowledged the true scale of the tragedy. Today, archaeologists are using ground-penetrating radar to search for mass graves around Tulsa. In 2020, exactly 99 years later, they discovered the first signs of mass graves at Oaklawn Cemetery. The remains have still not come home. A century later, the mass burial sites have still not been fully identified. History does not disappear simply because people stop telling it. It waits silent, patient, beneath the ground. Dick Rowland was never brought to trial. Sarah Page refused to testify against him, and the charges were dismissed. No one knows exactly what happened inside the elevator in the Drexel building. That is what makes this story especially heartbreaking. A moment that may have been ambiguous, perhaps even harmless, became the spark for one of the worst racial massacres in American history. But what must be remembered is this: a spark does not create an explosion. It only ignites what is already ready to burn. What had been building for years had long been accumulating. This included hatred, resentment toward black success, and a vague fear of what many called the overturning of the social order. Greenwood was not burned because of Dick Rowland. Greenwood was burned because it existed, because it proved that black Americans could prosper, could be self-reliant, could build their own lives without asking anyone's permission. And in America in 1921, that was unacceptable. Today in Tulsa, the Greenwood Cultural Center has been built. The street names remain. Memorial plaques stand in the places where banks, hotels, and clinics once existed. But the ashes of a C. Jackson have still not received justice. The Stratford family regained their honor only decades later, but they never regained their hotel. They also never recovered from the 75 years during which their name was branded as criminal. The last survivors died without ever receiving compensation. The 576-page report, containing the full findings, is still waiting for an answer to a question it raised in 2001. The question is, what form of accountability would ever be enough for what happened in Greenwood? That answer has still not come. And beneath the soil around Tulsa, the dead of the night of May 31st, 1921, are still waiting to be called by name. They built a city with their dreams. It was burned with hatred, but ashes never truly grow cold. Historical note: Dick Rowland was released and left Tulsa forever. No one was ever convicted for the Tulsa Massacre. Oklahoma only began teaching about this event in schools in 2020. Thank you for listening to this story. Please like and subscribe to see more meaningful And important stories like this